Hello and welcome to the Stronghold Digital Mining Daily Update. Today is Tuesday, October 31st, 2023. My name's Steven Zeiner, and next month is November. And November, in addition to being the month in which Stronghold Digital Mining will be having an investor presentation to talk about Q3 2023 results, November also happens to be National Novel Writing Month. Hey, wait a minute. What does National Novel Writing Month have to do with Stronghold Digital Mining, right? After all, Stronghold is a vertically integrated Bitcoin mining company. We own 2 waste coal reclamation facilities here in the state of Pennsylvania. We own our own data centers. We own the vast majority of the Bitcoin mining machines that are inside those data centers. We are arguably a truly vertically integrated Bitcoin mining company. That has nothing to do with literature, book publishing, storytelling, or anything else, right? Well, you're right, but I do find the Stronghold Digital Mining story to be extremely inspirational. So as a result of that, I am going to participate in National Novel Writing Month, which begins tomorrow. I got a bit of a jump start and began really organizing my thoughts and ideas here in the month of October. And in fact, I have a proposed title that I'd like to share with you. It's okay to laugh. This can seem a bit goofy or a bit over the top, but Scarlift, the righteous race to rid Pennsylvania of its toxic gob wastelands, based on true events. I need a little bit of a literary license here. I can't necessarily make this a true story, so it's going to be based on true events. And I'll have more to share about that and the writing process as the month of November, sort of like evolves. But I wanted to at least take a moment to share that bit of cool news with you. Now, it's cool to me because I think this is an opportunity to once again try to get Stronghold Digital Mining out there. Now, bear in mind, I'm not going to really be creating a story that's literally based on a company called Stronghold Digital Mining. However, it's largely going to be based, right, with some degree of literary license on my part. It is going to be based on this incredible, truly incredible, highly inspirational story. Which involves the company that you and I co-own, right? And what arguably truly is its righteous race to rid Pennsylvania of its toxic gob wastelands. So this brings me to something else. And I'm not entirely sure yet where this path is taking me in terms of this thought process, but I thought I'd sort of get your opinion. So whenever I use the term waste coal, right, and it's a term that I'll probably keep using, but I'd like to slowly but surely perhaps evolve away from using it. And the reason why is because whenever I say waste coal, I'm almost immediately then having to point out, but this isn't like actual coal the way you would think of it. It's not like we're really burning coal. This isn't like leftover coal that could have been burned like in a thermal coal plant, or used to make steel. I'm always having to sort of explain, right, that it's not actually coal, right? Because coal these days is, as they'd say, right, a 4-letter word. However, there are other phrases that can, very legitimately be used to describe this substance, which generally speaking, I've referred to as coal refuse, waste coal, words along those lines. So one of those terms is GOB. Now, GOB, that's an acronym for, and gosh, I'm going to probably mispronounce this portion of it, so bear with me. Garbage of... Man, let me look it up. I just want to, because you know what? It's pronounced slightly differently in different parts of the state. And I want to sort of be somewhat... Okay, let's hear this together.
Bituminous.
Bituminous. Okay, bituminous. Garbage of bituminous, right? Now, bituminous is what is generally described as the type of coal that's more prevalent in western Pennsylvania. Here in eastern Pennsylvania, it's something called anthracite. And I have no problem pronouncing that because, after all, I am from eastern Pennsylvania, and some of the idioms and phraseologies of eastern Pennsylvania and its coal are a bit more familiar to me. But I have heard bituminous pronounced in a couple different ways, which I'm not going to really go into in this broadcast. But just for the record, bituminous. Based on the DuckDuckGo search engine, oddly enough, a Pennsylvania-based search engine, bituminous. So anyway, garbage of bituminous, GOB. That's one way to describe this waste coal, right? This, coal refuse. Culm, C-U-L-M, is another way to describe like eastern Pennsylvania anthracite, waste coal, so to speak. So I did, for a short period of time, consider just combining both words into something called gulm, G-U-L-M. And that's kind of like a made-up word of sorts. And then I just thought, the word gob sort of works. I think it's a nice word because it's just easy to pronounce. Hey, a bunch of toxic gob, right? Gob wastelands. So I have to figure out how to best maybe incorporate the phrase gob into my sort of like vocabulary as it relates to describing waste coal, so that I'm not having to say, hey, Stronghold Digital Mining, right, cleans up waste coal, right? And then it's like, people are like, what do you mean waste coal? I'm like, well, we take this waste coal and turn it into electricity, and then they're like, oh, but you're burning coal. And I'm like, well, but it's not the coal that you're thinking of. So maybe if instead I can say, hey, we're really just trying to clean up a bunch of toxic gob wastelands, right? Then I can maybe come up with another way to describe what this gob really is. Like, what is that junk? Well, it's toxic. It's highly acidic. When it rains on it, it's like battery acid, right? It turns rivers red, kills plant and animal life. I mean, maybe there's a way to describe this then, which can kind of help get past what might otherwise be an immediate resistance whenever somebody hears the word coal. And they're like, oh my God, they're burning coal. These are, heathens, But it's not like we're coal mining, right? It's not like Stronghold Digital Mining is going into the earth and pulling out fresh coal to burn, to mine Bitcoin, right? Instead, what the company is doing is cleaning up the toxic remnants of 100 plus years of coal mining here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So what do you think? I'm very much interested in your perspective on this. To the extent you have any thoughts or maybe ideas as to how we collectively can better present to the outside world what we're doing, right? So that we're not just right off the bat, hey, it's waste coal, but by the way, it's not coal the way you're thinking, you know what I mean? And then you kind of get off into that tangent, and it's almost like a defensive footing that you're kind of on, like right at the beginning. Whereas if you call it something like gob, well, I mean, a lot of people probably won't even know what that is, right? Unless they're from maybe Western Pennsylvania or even Eastern Pennsylvania, right? They may not be 100% sure what that's in reference to, although I think most people around here would be. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Okay, moving on. So with regard to the stock price, I promised that there would be a much greater emphasis on the stock price. Especially now as we're going into the month of November, we're going to be having an investor presentation. I'll tell you, the stock price, I think, is going to come under increased pressure as we slowly but surely move into year end. And I think that's not only going to be Stronghold Digital Mining, but quite possibly every company within the publicly traded Bitcoin mining sector, especially if you've got investors, speculators who may have bought the stock earlier this year at maybe $9, $10 a share. And they're like, all right, you know what? Maybe we're going to close out the year closer to $4 a share. Hey, I could maybe take this as a tax, write-off, so to speak. So you could have a lot of tax selling going into year end, absent some really significant news. Let me give you an example of what I mean by that. If Stronghold Digital Mining were to basically come out and say, hey, we're making the announcement. We are going to be working in partnership with fill in the blank, in terms of the name of the company, to basically sequester our carbon dioxide, right? That's emitted from both Scrubgrass and Panther Creek. And we're going to take then a portion of our beneficial use hash, right? The portion that's not going to go back, right, to where the gob came from, right, to help sort of like stabilize the earth, right, in that region of land. Hey, all that other stuff, what we're going to do is we're going to combine it with the help of this company, right? We're going to combine our beneficial use hash with our CO2 emissions to create maybe like an eco-friendly cement. And by the way, what that means is we're going to be able to take advantage of certain tax credits as it relates to CO2 emissions, and it's going to generate some very healthy additional revenue streams from the eco-friendly concrete, or cement, I should say. That type of announcement would really be game-changing, because at that point, then you're potentially talking about tens upon tens upon tens of millions of dollars of revenue. And that's especially true given the relatively lucrative nature of the tax credits that were included in the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, which Stronghold Digital Mining could ostensibly tap into. So absent something like that, and otherwise we're just, or like a situation where, hey, the bottom drops out on the US dollar, Bitcoin surges substantially, there's an immediate, unmistakable like financial crisis that really emerges, in a very significant way. Then you could see a scenario where, of course, presuming that Bitcoin's really shooting up in price, you would see then probably, right, Stronghold Digital Mining share price really accelerate right into that rally. Absent anything like that, where it's more just like, hey, you know what, things are steady, we're kind of just going along, things are, nothing too dramatic to the upside or to the downside. I think the stock could come under increased pressure as we get closer to year end, as tax selling potentially accelerates. So does that concern me? Not really, because again, it would be tax selling. It's not, hey, it's selling because, oh my gosh, there's something significantly wrong with our company, and there are those who are jumping ship, stuff like that. That doesn't really concern me. So again, this has been a process, hasn't it? I mean, when you think about our stock price, I mean, we were up close to $10, I think twice this year, which is kind of amazing, right? In the sense that here we are sitting at about, $4.25, and yet arguably many of our fundamentals are dramatically better than they were at the beginning of this year. I mean, if you go back to even this time last year, our fundamentals today are like dramatically, like factually better. And I know you're going to say, hey, but dilution, you know what I mean? That's why, well, hey, you got to keep in mind that, yeah, dilution's a factor for Stronghold Digital Mining, but you know what? Dilution's like a really, 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 really big factor at several other publicly traded Bitcoin mining companies. And I've been seeing, again, I'm very focused on Stronghold. You know what I mean? I don't have the time to really dig into like a lot of other Bitcoin mining companies, but to the extent that I sometimes, just make an effort to kind of see, hey, what are people talking about as it relates to other Bitcoin mining companies? I see a lot of complaints about, I'm not going to mention the name, but one Bitcoin mining company in particular that wants to raise like another roughly $1 billion despite having like a ton of cash, all these resources. It seems as if those shareholders of that company are quite fed up. And again, I don't know if, I can't comment as to the merits of what's going on with that company, but it clearly seems as if there's a lot of frustration with what's going on. So, does that mean, hey, we get a free pass? No, I mean, look, understandably, there are going to be those that look at us and say, hey, you know what, this is what should be done, or that could have been done better. Yeah, I hear you. It's easy to sometimes look in the rearview mirror and say, yeah, I could have done this or should have done that. But here we are coming to the very end, right, of 2023, from my perspective, in my opinion, in far better shape than we were this same time last year. Where, by the way, last year, similar to what we've heard, it seems like, since our IPO, hey, Stronghold's going to, they're going to go under. This is last year now. Stronghold's going under. That, hey, they basically stopped Bitcoin mining, it seems. They're giving up the whole Bitcoin thing. And of course, here we are about a year later, actually a little over a year later, in far, far better shape as it relates to all of the Bitcoin mining operations, right? So take it a day at a time, right? Got to stay positive as always. Got to try to be great. And we're going to definitely have a good conversation tomorrow. Hopefully, bear in mind too, like unofficially, but kind of officially, I'm sort of on watch at this point for any potential news releases that may come out leading up to our investor presentation. Generally speaking, right, if the past is any guide at all, there's usually sometimes one or two announcements that come out prior to these investor presentations. Sometimes that announcement is concurrent with the announcement of the investor, in terms of like, hey, when the investor presentation will be held and at what time. Sometimes there's additional information provided in that type of news release. So let's keep our eyes open. And remember, let me know in the comments what you think about perhaps substituting the word gob for waste coal, and maybe coming up with a better phraseology for what we're trying to talk about, so that we're not immediately then having to explain, well, it's not really coal, etc., etc. Okay, let's be positive, let's be great. Happy Halloween, and I'll see you again tomorrow.